This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa. Oh boy, I don't have the right microphone selected. That's great. Internet world, West Alabama, how are you doing today on this beautiful, rainy Friday? It's the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. We appreciate everybody who's jumped in and joined us today. You're watching on YouTube, on Facebook, or Twitter, on Joe Gaither 6 on my social media platforms, or you're watching us on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. You might be listening to us on your podcast channel, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon. We appreciate everybody who subscribed, rated, and reviewed the show. What are we going to do on this rainy Friday? We're going to do two things and wrap this bad boy up. We're going to get ready for the weekend. Well, first, we're going to remind you that Alabama softball is supposed to be playing all weekend long at the Rhodes House in the NCAA Regionals. We're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with the weather. If you're not in Tuscaloosa or West Alabama, it is pretty rainy today, and it's going to be supposed to be pretty rainy tomorrow as well. So we will see if the ladies are able to get their softball games in. And, of course, you can follow Katie Wyndham at KatieWyndham_, and she'll be joined by Matthew Gibson and a little bit of Edwin Stanton covering the NCAA Regionals over in the Rhodes House, about 3 miles away from where we're sitting right now. Hopefully they're able to get it in, and ideally the ladies are able to put some things together and advance into the Super Regionals. You can follow that on BamaCentral.com. On the baseball side of things, we want to remind you that Alabama baseball is playing its final series, its final regular season games right here. They are down in Auburn. My man Will Miller and Kim Rankin are covering that for us at BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. That will also be right there on the homepage. You can follow those guys on their social medias for all the updates down in Auburn. The seedings will finalize over the weekend, and we'll get talking about SEC baseball tournament next week. I cannot wait actually to get up to Hoover and be a part of the SEC baseball tournament. Look, you guys, if you've listened to the show any or watched the show any, you know I'm not a massive baseball fan, but I will encourage you to go to Hoover if you can. It is a great event. No matter if you are the least baseball fan among us or the most baseball fan among us, it is a great event. Very family friendly. I find a very family friendly environment. Hey guys, hey, let's not do that. Let's calm it down. You got the dog and the cat fighting in the background as they're cooped up on this rainy day. So we'll get into SEC baseball next week. But what I want to do is two things. I want to talk about the NCAA trailer that came out today, the NCAA EA Sports College Football trailer. We'll watch it together. And I want to talk about just a small trend that I'm seeing on Twitter. You're seeing a lot of Alabama media folks kind of get into this, the top 10 Alabama football players on the roster. I've got my own list of 10. Excuse me. I've got my own list of 10, and we will get into that. You can let me know which football players maybe you think I left out, who I disrespected. Look, this is not about respect or disrespect. It's just a matter of opinion. I think Alabama's got a really good team, but these are my 10 players. These will be my 10 players that I think are the best 10 football players. I got a couple honorable mentions as well. So we invite you to jump in and join us on the comment section. As always, you can send me a comment, question, query, and complaint at Joe Gaither 6 on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. What do we want to do first? Top 10 players, or do we want to look at this college football trailer? Let's look at the trailer because that's the kind of the hottest news of the day. EA Sports, if you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, I'm playing the trailer at the moment. But EA Sports puts out their new trailer and not a whole lot of gameplay footage, but the it's all kinds of setup and montage footage. Teams going into their respective stadiums. And look, the graphics do look good. They look beautiful. A couple of very exciting things. Alabama was featured in this little trailer. You're going to see Jalen Milroe taking a sack against the Georgia Bulldogs, and then subsequently a play or two later throwing a long bomb. Look, Bevo, the Texas mascot, looks good. Like, all these graphics look clean and crisp. But what they put out today is not really anything of substance, anything of significance. Yes, it does keep your excitement going. How can you even be any more excited for this game than you already are? But it continues the excitement train. Everything that they're showing in this trailer today is not really gameplay footage. So you can't really, in my opinion, take this for I don't think you can take it too far. Yes, they've got put out some details on the websites. They let you know you got team builder. You've got a lot of different look. There's Alabama right there for the first time in the trailer. You got a lot of different features that they announced today, and that's a lot of fun. But the big kind of talking point is this trailer. Here's Jalen Milroe. He's about to get sacked, and then he turns around on the next play and has a huge bomb. I enjoyed seeing the turnover belt. Alabama's turnover belt is featured. We just saw it on the trailer, and that's a lot of fun. If you looked at it, if you paid any attention to college football in the last 5-6 years, you've seen the turnover chain, the turnover this, the turnover that. But Alabama, I don't mean to be Alabama did it first, but Alabama did it first with the turnover, the ball out belt, and a lot of people seem to forget that and give credit to Miami's turnover chain, which was a cool thing. But it's cool to see the ball out belt on the trailer. Hopefully, that'll be featured prominently in the game if you're playing with Alabama and you're able to get a turnover off your opponent. I think it's a fun day. It creates excitement. It creates, talking points. It gets people talking about the game. Obviously, we spent our first 4 or 5 minutes looking at the trailer and talking about it. But again, just caution you, everything that you saw in the trailer today is not necessarily indicative of it being in the game or not, because everything you saw that we showed you right there was kind of just B-roll footage. It's not real game footage. So we'll have to see in the future if the game looks good in actual play when you're selecting plays and running plays. I imagine it will. I imagine it'll look very similar to maybe the Maddens in the past. But I don't think that that's as big a problem. I think the hunger and fever pitch for this game is at an all-time high. You can let me know if you are excited about the game or not. I'm still kind of up in the air on when or what I'll be buying, if I'll be buying it right off the bat, because I'm not a huge gamer anymore. I used to be in my youth, in my teens, that sort of thing. I used to be playing a lot of video games in my teens, but not as much anymore. But I obviously recognize the excitement for the game, and so we want to be a part of that excitement. What I really wanted to talk about today is kind of this Twitter movement that I'm seeing over a couple of different prominent Alabama accounts, and I appreciate everybody. I basically scroll Twitter for inspiration on the show anyways, pretty much every day. Let's talk about the top 10 Alabama football players on this roster right now. You got to look, 85 guys. We talked about it already. Might be 86, might be 87 based on some scholarship fudging. But Alabama's roster is pretty much set in stone. Alabama's roster is pretty much ready for the 2024 season. You've gone through the transfer portal. You've acquired, 5-6 guys in the portal this during the spring window, and you can actually read about that. My friend Blake Byler put in basically an encapsulation of the transfer portal right there on the front page of BamaCentral.com. So I appreciate Blake doing that. If you ever missed any of the transfers, you can see that. But this is just the Joe Gaither list. This is the Joe Gaither list, and you're welcome to let me know who I've left off or who you think should be higher or lower. I've got 10 guys, and we'll go 10-1, and then we'll talk about some honorable mentions and why these 10 guys made my roster. Hey. My dog is having a fit today because we haven't gone out that much with the rain. So I apologize for the interruptions about that. Abby's a sweet girl, but a little cooped up today, and that's A-okay. All right, so I'm going 10-1. Alabama players, everybody on the 2024 roster is eligible. I've got how many honorable mentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 honorable mentions, and then they're just kind of out there. We'll get to them after I go through the 10. At number 10, I think Damani Jackson is your 10th best player on the roster. And first, look, how do you define a football player? Is it, how much they impact the team? No, I think this is, look, football is about what? Blocking, is about tackling, is about fundamentals, is about physicality. I think it's really encapsulate. Yeah, Jalen Milroe is obviously going to be on this list, and he deserves to be so. But I think that just because you're the quarterback, you're not the best player on the team. I think the whole lot more goes into football players. So if I were a coach these would be the 10 guys, and probably in the order of guys I would want on my team from the Alabama team. So number 10, I'm going with Damani Jackson. Damani Jackson, I think, he has all the makings and all the bones of a premier college cornerback. I think that he is going to be a lockdown corner this year. Yes, he did have a little bit of a struggle year last year with Southern California, but I think that as far as a football player, he has the height, he has the right size for a corner. I mean, he is a prototypical NFL cornerback. And I think if he has a good year in Tuscaloosa, you could see him go on to the NFL as a top 2-round draft pick. I think he'll be a second-round pick. You see how premium cornerback is in the NFL. And I think Damani, as far as athleticism, as far as strength, as far as physicality, I think that he is one of the 10 best players on this Alabama football team. So I've got Damani Jackson coming in at my number 10 spot. Number 9, I think I've got Sounders. I think I have an old Sounder here. Yeah, what about that? I probably need to raise up my level. There you go. So number 9, Jihad Campbell is my number 9 player on this year's Alabama roster. Look, I think Alabama has probably the best interior linebacker combo in the SEC, and probably you can extend that to the country. I love Deontay Lawson, and you'll see him later in this list. But Jihad Campbell is an absolute stud. His athleticism in the middle, his physicality in the middle. Where did he struggle last year? It was his eyes. And why do you struggle with your eyes as a young player? Because of inexperience. And that's A-okay. But basically, once Jihad Campbell was healthy last season, he took Trez Marshall's place. And he played very, very well next to Deontay Lawson. And whenever Deontay Lawson was down with certain injuries, he was basically the captain of the defense as a sophomore. So I like Jihad Campbell. You remember him. He was a late add into his recruiting class, a big-time 5-star player that came. I think he was a Clemson commit that flipped to Alabama, and just a huge get for Nick Saban. I like Jihad Campbell. I think that if he and Deontay Lawson are able to stay healthy, we've talked about it on the program before about my concern with the third interior linebacker based on the health and availability of Deontay Lawson and Jihad Campbell. But if those two guys stay healthy all season long, then there's no reason to worry about that third interior linebacker, because I think your pair on the inside, I think it might be your best position group just right off the bat from starters, at least on defense. On offense, you're probably competing with the running backs because the running backs are loaded 1, 2, and 3, and you'll see a running back here on my list. But I love Jihad Campbell. Obviously, a lot of people are thinking back to the Tennessee game last season, the recovered fumble for a touchdown that basically sealed the deal against the Vols. I think Jihad Campbell is an instinctual football player, and he uses those instincts and combines them with physicality and athleticism. I think he presents a real problem for opposing offenses, and I've got him as my number 9 football player. My number 8 is going to be a running back. The only running back on this list is Justice Haynes. Look, I loved Justice last year and wanted to see more of Justice last year, but you weren't really going to get on the field over Roydell Williams and oh my gosh, I'm escaping. He went to the Atlanta Falcons. Oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart. Falcons running backs. I can see his face, and I'm just having a big old brain fart. Jace McClellan. Thank you. Goodness gracious. You're not going to get on the field. You weren't really going to get on the field over Jace and Roydell Williams based on their seniority and really the trust that Nick Saban had put into those guys. I wish you would have seen more Justice Haynes down the stretch. I really wish you would have seen more Justice Haynes in that Rose Bowl. You saw him just a little bit, and I think that he might have been a little bit of that X factor that might have put Alabama's offense over the top in that Rose Bowl and allowed them to be a little more consistent in that second half, but you didn't. So we're not crying over spilled milk. We're looking forward to the new season. And I think Justice Haynes is a stud football player. He can run between the tackles. He can run on the outside. He struggled a little bit in pass blocking, but that's what freshmen do. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt in that category that he's taking a step forward.
I think he's going to be a real weapon for this Alabama offense going forward in 2024. So I got Justice Haynes as my number 8 football player on this roster. My number 7 football player is he the only transfer on my list? Obviously Damani Jackson. But my only offensive transfer on this list, Jeremy Bernard, number 7, is my number 7 football player on this roster. People say, oh, what about the other receivers, Kobe Prentice and Kendrick Law and and basically Ryan Williams coming in. You got a lot of great young talent coming in. But I think Jeremy Bernard might become your wide receiver 1 this year. Well, not might. I think he will become your wide receiver 1 this season, and I think he's going to become Jalen Noro's best friend. You saw him in the A-Day game, and I don't really want to get too hyped up about Alabama's A-Day because it is spring practice. But Jeremy Bernard possesses a lot of things that you like in a wide receiver. And the most, for me, explosiveness and physicality. You saw him get down the field in A-Day. You saw him really be explosive the little bit of time that he got with the Washington Huskies. I think he's a bit bigger version than a Kendrick Law. I think he appreciates blocking on the outside. And I think that he's a go-getter. I think he high points the football very, very well. And I think that he's going to be a really, really tough cover in the SEC this year. So, look, you've missed a wide receiver 1 with Alabama football since what? Jameson Williams? I mean, we love you, John Mechie, but he was really the 2 on that team since that year where both the guys get hurt. You can talk about Jermaine Burton, but Jermaine Burton was more of a glorified 2+. I think that Jeremy Bernard is going to reestablish, Alabama's got a true number 1 wide receiver. And because of that, you'll get more guys like Kobe Prentice and Kendrick Law wide open because, we got to really focus on Jeremy Bernard. I think that he is going to be really, really fun to watch this season. And so I have Jeremy Bernard as my number 7 football player on this roster. Number 6, we're going to come up with an offensive lineman. Number 6, I like Jaden Roberts. I think your guard combo is going to be very, very good. Hey, let's stop our fighting, please. I think your guard combo is going to be very, very good. The dog and the cat are fighting. Excuse me. But Jaden Roberts, look, he came on late last season and played really, really well at right guard. And I think that he's only going to take a step forward. He lost a little bit of weight, got slim muscle. I think he is a really dedicated football player. And I like what he brings to this offensive line. He's not as maybe vocal as some of the others, but I think that he is just quietly you're not getting past me, and I am going to road grade you down the field in the running game. And so I think he really added an element to last year's offensive line that kind of was missing until he got into the fold. I think they struggled a bit being as physical as they wanted to. I know the guys wanted to really own the trenches, but I don't think it really started happening consistently until Jaden Roberts got into the lineup. And so I'm really excited about seeing a full year of Jaden Roberts offseason, knowing that he's the starter and getting the full-time reps. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how he develops under new offensive line coach Chris Kapilovic. Number 5, you probably are going to disagree, and please feel free to disagree. But number 5, I have my friend and tight end, Robbie Ouzts. I say friend, I don't really know him, but they're all my friends because they're all your friends. Robbie Ouzts is a football playing Jesse. You say, Robbie Ouzts, he's not really even a full-time starter, and he's not. But Robbie Ouzts exudes exactly what I'm talking about as far as football players, and so does my number 4 when we get to him. Robbie Ouzts can block. Robbie Ouzts, if the on special teams, if it calls for it, can tackle. Robbie Ouzts knows his assignment. He plays assignment sound football. I think he executes his assignment at a very, very high level. And Robbie Ouzts, even not knowing him personally, you can watch the film and see that he is a brilliant football player. Why? Because he manned so many different positions for Alabama. He was manning basically the blocking tight end. He's manning basically the glorified fullback that doesn't actually exist. And he's playing on all the special teams. And, of course, catching some passes when it comes his way. No, he's not C.J. Dupree, but he's catching some passes when it comes his way. Robbie Ouzts is that player that, while you may not think of him as, that's my best football player, Robbie Ouzts I think he's number 5 for a reason on my list, because I think his versatility, his physicality, his intellectual ability to know what he's supposed to be doing and execute it as a high as at a high level as he can. I love what Robbie Hoots brings to this football team. Nastiness, toughness. No, you're not going to get a lot of flash. You're not going to get 50 receptions and 8 touchdowns out of him from the tight end position. But what you are going to get out of him is basically no blown assignments. And so I think that is very, very important and very, very commendable on this team. So Robbie Hoots, yes, CJ Dupree is going to get more of the flash, and everybody's going to be excited about Josh Cuevas, the tight end from Washington that's transferred in. But I think Robbie Hoots is a really, really strong football player and really important to this Alabama offense. Number 4, also not a flashy guy, but I think that Tim Keenan is the 4th best football player on this team. Tim Keenan at nose guard, look, you may not watch football the same way that I do, but Tim Keenan is an absolute stud. Coming along that last year, losing a little bit of weight and figuring out that zero nose guard technique. People say, oh, he didn't get a whole lot of tackles. Oh, not a lot of tackles for loss. Oh, this, that, and the other. But what he does for the defense is so important. We talked about Jahad Campbell earlier, and we're going to talk about Deontay Lawson. But you have to have defensive linemen who are not only eating up blocks, but holding their own, not getting in the way of the linebackers' flow. Linebackers are flowing behind the defensive linemen, looking for the right gaps in order to fill. Tim Keenan is not going to get drafted very high in this coming up year's NFL draft, I don't fear. But Tim Keenan is going to be a football player that, goodness gracious, if my Chicago Bears are listening to me, you're going to need a guy like Tim Keenan to remember Eddie Goldman from Florida State, went into the league and played very, very well, basically clogging up the middle and allowing linebackers to roam behind him. I think Tim Keenan is one of the most underrated football players on this team. And maybe that's why I have him listed so high. I'm not going to say he's going to get 10 sacks, and he's not going to give you – look, he's not going to be Quinnen Williams. You remember Quinnen Williams was virtually unblockable during that redshirt sophomore year that he turned into a top 5 NFL draft pick. But Tim Keenan is not going to get moved off the football. That's so important. You got that rock in the middle that wins the line of scrimmage, that hunkers down and takes on the double teams, that doesn't allow the center or the guards next to him to get to the next level because he's unmovable. I like Tim Keenan. And maybe you say, oh, he's not important, but I think that he's extremely important to this defense. And I think because of what he does so well, that's why you're going to see the Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell's really, really play well behind him and really, really have strong seasons behind him. Number three, you got to go with the quarterback. I got Jalen Milroe as my 3rd best player on this Alabama football team this year. And you say, oh, man, he's the number 1 best player. Maybe so, but this is the Joe Gaither list, and you can have your own list. Put it in the comments if you want. Who are your top 10 Alabama football players on the roster? Hey, sorry about that. Hey, please just calm it down just a little bit. It's okay. It will be okay. I like Jalen Milroe as my 3rd best football player on this roster because of what he does really for the team in the leadership department. And really, I think he's a good quarterback. People can talk about his processing this and his throwing mechanics that. And look, I'm not going to argue with him. When he was starting against Texas A&M, 2 seasons ago, the throwing mechanics were absolutely atrocious, disgusting, almost unwatchable. But as far as athletic ability, oh my gosh, you could see it was oozing all over him. Think about where he's gone since that start. Yeah, he had 3 turnovers in that game, a couple fumbles and an interception or so, or it might have been vice versa. But he had 3 turnovers in that game. Alabama ended up winning. But from that day, he's now led Alabama to an SEC championship. He led them 1 snap away, or really a couple snaps away from the national title game last year. And all that, I think he's still improved from last year. I think you saw it in the Alabama A-Day game. He threw like 7 or 8 passes in A-Day, so they didn't really ask him to do a whole lot. But you saw the improvements in the throwing mechanics. I think that this offense will accentuate his skill sets, getting the football down the field. And I think that Kalen DeBoer, something about Kalen DeBoer's ability to communicate, I think it clicks with these players. And Jalen Milroe specifically, I think he is able to click with these players and let them know, okay, you might have struggled reading the full field in the past, but here's you some tips and tricks. I think that he really looked good during A-Day, and I'm excited about his progression. Look, he finished, 6th in the Heisman Trophy voting last season? He returns as the highest returning vote getter. I think that he's going to probably be in New York this coming up season. We talked about Heisman Trophy odds a couple of shows ago. Jalen Milroe's ability to get out and run, oh my gosh. I mean, people, all the detractors say, oh, he's just a running back. Well, he's a dang good running back. He's an incredible running back. Obviously, I put a lot of stress on defenses. Because of his running ability, I think it limits what defenses can do to him. And I think that you're going to marry Kalen DeBoer's offensive system and preparation with Jalen Milroe's already otherworldly preparation. His reputation for preparing is very, very good. Getting into the office at 4 or 5 in the morning, getting ready for each day while I'm still asleep. So I think Jalen Milroe deserves a lot of flowers and a lot of credit. His progression from that first start against Texas A&M and Bryant-Denny Stadium that really was not a great start to all the way through last year and what he's going to be for this team this season. I got Jalen Milroe as my 3rd best football player on this roster. Number 2, Deontay Lawson. And maybe it's just because I love defense, but Deontay Lawson, I think he's a head buster. I think he is he harkens back to the Rashaan Evans. He harkens back to the Fosters. He harkens back to a lot of these great the C.J. Mosleys. A little bit of Rolando McClain in his game. Very long player, athletic player, and people say, "Oh, Joe, he didn't really have that good of a season last year," and we've talked about it before. I think that he started off fairly well, got hurt in that Ole Miss game, week 3 or 4, and never really was 100% ever since then. I think if you get 100% Deontay Lawson, he's a football player that you're absolutely going to love. And that absolutely impacts football games with his ability to rush the passer, to cover the pass, and to fill rushing lanes. I love Deontay Lawson and what he's able to do from the interior linebacker position. I'm hopeful that he's able to play a full 12-game season healthy. I think that's good. That's going to be key for him. I think that he plays so hard and that he's so athletic that oftentimes maybe he gets banged up and dinged up because he's just going at 1,000%. And what more do you want from an inside linebacker than somebody who's going to go at 1,000%? I know that last year he was kind of complimented for leading the defense. He and Malachi Moore. Obviously, the defense has changed a little bit, but I imagine Deontay Lawson is going to take on the responsibility once again of calling the defense and getting everybody into the same page. Deontay Lawson is my number 2 football player on this roster. And number 1, if you are using critical reasoning, if you're thinking clearly here, number 1 should be obvious. It is our left guard, Tyler Booker. Is my number 1 player on this Alabama roster. Tyler Booker is the only guy that's being projected in the first round of this year's NFL draft. And this is not all about draft stock and draft status because, look, Deontay Lawson, they don't like inside linebackers that much. And number 4, Tim Keenan, they don't like nose guards that much in the NFL. But I think Tyler Booker is a extremely solid football player. I mean, he's only been in the starting rotation, in the starting lineup for the last 2 seasons. This will be his 3rd season. And he has just embodied everything that Alabama is. Toughness, physicality, sound football, assignment football. And I think Tyler Booker is a strong leader in the offensive line room and just a strong leader with the entire team. So I've got Tyler Booker as my number 1 overall player. That's 2 offensive linemen in my top 10. Look, you want to build a football team like that, really. 1 defensive lineman in my top 10 with Tim Keenan. You got both the interior linebackers. So the middle of your team. I mean, think about it. Quarterback is on this list. Running back is on this list. Just think about it, offense and defense facing one another, and the middle of the team is all represented here in the top 10. I think it's a good sign. I think that's a good sign for this Alabama team when we'll get into it in the next week or so, really the predictions for the upcoming season, wins and losses, and kind of predict the SEC. But for Alabama, it's a really, really good sign that the middle of the team is probably where it's strongest. The two guards, the interior nose guard, the two linebackers, quarterback and running back, everything in the middle is shored up. Now, who did I leave off? I have 6 guys on my honorable mentions, and I think they all could have found a way into the top 10. Again, this is just preferences. You can leave me your preferences at Joe Gaither 6 on any of the social media machines or right here in the comments on the YouTube section, whatever you like. But I've got 6 guys that I think, oh man, I should have put them in there, but I just didn't have a place, didn't have a room. I like Kendrick Law. I went with Jeremy Bernard as my wide receiver representative, but I like Kendrick Law because I think he's just a really good football player. Now, he's not as big. I don't know if he's going to be making as many contested catches as Jeremy Bernard, but as far as a football player goes, you put the ball in Kendrick Law's hands, he's going to run with physicality. You put him on the outside to block, he's going to block you with physicality. You watch Kendrick Law play, and I know you don't see a guy who takes any snaps off. That's a huge characteristic for me to consider. Everybody on my top 10 ain't taking snaps off. They're playing at 100%. They're each and every snap, and Kendrick Law is right there among them. I got Jam Miller, the running back, who might actually be starting over Justice Haynes. I think you'll see both Jam and Justice basically play 1 and 1A throughout the entire season. But Jam Miller is a really, really good running back. Runs with physicality, maybe not as explosive as Justice Haynes, but still a threat in the passing game, and runs behind his pads and downhill. So I love that. I got Jam Miller as one of my honorable mentions. Another honorable mention, and really I'd love to find a place for Malachi Moore, but Malachi Moore is one of my honorable mentions as well. You talk, oh, Joe, you should have had a place for Malachi. Yeah, you should have. I think he's a really smart football player. I think he gives 100%. I think he doesn't take a single snap off. But Malachi Moore is at that point really where I don't really think he's a slot corner, and I don't really think he's a deep safety either. He's kind of in this weird tweener zone where he might, look, he's probably more suited to be a strong safety, not a slot corner. You got Keon Sabb behind him. I don't know. I don't know that there's a perfect fit for Malachi Moore on this defense. Now, he is going to play. He's going to start. He's going to be manning one of the starting roles. But as far as a perfect fit for Malachi Moore's skill sets, I'm not quite sure there's one out there. And so that's why I left him off my list. But look, Coach Saban talked about it all year last year. Malachi Moore knows the defense. Malachi Moore gets the back end set. We missed Malachi Moore, a couple games he was out, 1 or 2 games he was out for different reasons or another. I think all the defensive backs missed a game or two for different reasons. But he said, we missed Malachi Moore because he sets the defense. And that's something that's hard to quantify. And so I think that Malachi is extremely important to this Alabama defense, but just maybe not one of the top 10 players on the team overall. Now, my last 3 are all defensive linemen. I got Jaheim Otis, I got Jamarian Latham, and I got LT Overton, all 3 as honorable mentions on this team. And maybe it's just because I'm biased towards the defense. I love defense. I think Jaheim Otis suffered a little bit of what Deontay Lawson suffered with last year. Got hurt and never really got healthy afterwards. Because of that, lacked explosiveness and wasn't nearly as effective as he was the previous season as a true freshman. I like Jaheim Otis. If he can play at 100%, if he can stay healthy, I think he's a real disruptor. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he will be in this new defensive system. Same with Jamarian Latham. Now, Jamarian Latham, I love as a pass rusher. He's got pass rushing moves and tools from the interior. Oh, man, they're out the wazoo. The biggest issue with Jamarian Latham is playing against the run and playing consistently. But I think this might be the year for him. You heard a lot about him last year going into the year that, oh, man, every time he gets on the field on pass rushing downs, he's really, really scary and really effective. Didn't really get a lot out of him in games. I think that he's going to take that step forward this year, and people are going to be really impressed and really proud of him. And then LT Overton. LT Overton, the transfer from Texas A&M. Look, I think that he's a strong player. I didn't have him in my top 10, but basically because we haven't seen him in this roster. We haven't seen him on this fit. I think he's going to be really, really nice in this team. I think the Alabama defensive line is going to be pretty nasty and pretty fun to watch this season. So here's my top 10 real quick, right back through. I got number 10, Damani Jackson, number 9, Jihad Campbell, number 8, Justice Haynes, number 7, Jeremy Bernard, number 6, Jaden Roberts, number 5, Robbie Oots, number 4, Tim Keenan, number 3, Jalen Milroe, and number 2, Deontay Lawson, with number 1 being Tyler Booker. Those are my top 10 Alabama football players for this coming up 2024 season. I'd love to have you tell me where you think I'm right or wrong. You can jump in on the comments at Joe Gaither 6 on your favorite social media machine. We'll circle back to one of the comments. James Ludeman asked me, let's talk about EA Sports. We already talked just a little bit. I don't know if I'm getting it, James, because I'm not really playing a whole lot of video games that much anymore in my life. My PlayStation might get turned on 3 times a month. Maybe. Now I do enjoy those 3 times a month, but it's not going to be a huge priority for me. I think that people are just excited about it because it's been away so long. I got a lot of friends asking, is it just going to be a Madden redo? And people in my friend group are maybe split on that mattering or not. I think people are just feverishly hungry to play with the University of Alabama and to play with the University of Georgia and to play with college football teams again. I know that you're not really running a whole lot of triple option in Madden. That'll be a lot of fun to resurrect the triple option in NCAA Sports, EA Sports, College Football 25. The trailer again is out. We watched it to get the show started today. I enjoyed the trailer, but I mean, everybody who's kind of having a backflip over the trailer maybe needs to calm down and realize that none of what you saw is actual gameplay footage. It's all a bunch of B-roll to get you excited. So if you're feeling excited, that's fine. You're feeling exactly what they want you to feel. But let's wait to see what actual gameplay footage looks like, and we'll evaluate whether it's a good or bad game or not. We'll get out of here for the day. Look, I'm probably going to go watch some PGA Tour because, goodness gracious, if you're paying attention to any of the news today, Scotty Scheffler getting arrested has piqued my fancy to a high degree. I know it's not an Alabama topic, but I just love all the memes and all the stories and really the confusion from this morning up there in Louisville with Scotty Scheffler. So I'm going to be probably paying attention to the PGA Championship the rest of the weekend. Obviously, I'm going to be paying attention to Bama softball this weekend in the Rhodes House. It's going to be kind of a nightmare to get it all in with the weather. Yeah, exactly. Chance Bailey. I'm definitely hyped for the video game, but they are teasing us with no real gameplay, which makes me think it's not done yet. I think it's close. You're probably right. They're probably got some finishing touches on it. What did I see? July or June 11, June something, mid-June. So they're probably still putting finishing touches on it. The B-roll looks good. The B-roll in the trailer, it does look good. I'm not going to sit here and lie about that. It doesn't look, it looks good, but I'm not quite at the point of, I'm definitely buying this game or not, because I want to see how it kind of plays out with real gameplay. And I want to see, look, if I have the adequate time to sit down and enjoy it. The last time, what was 10 years ago? I was 24. I think I was playing, I was playing NCAA 2014 with my buddies. So maybe we'll resurrect something with some of my friends. We'll be watching Alabama softball. They're going to have a nightmare of a time getting the games in this weekend with the rain. I'm looking out the window and it is dark right here on a Friday. Hopefully the ladies will be able to play all the games. Obviously they have to play all the games so one of the 4 teams can qualify for super regionals. But it's going to be kind of a nightmare. Make sure you're following BamaCentral. You can check out right there on the front page of BamaCentral. You can you'll see the live updates. Katie Wyndham will let you know all the weather updates from the live updates on BamaCentral. And then of course our friend Will Miller and Kim Rankin are going to be handling all things Alabama baseball. They lost to Auburn last night. They're going to have 2 more opportunities down in the Plains. Auburn, not really a good conference record, but they beat Missouri last weekend in a series. I think that was the first series win of the year. So the Auburn Tigers are a little hot, a little bit. They're heating up a little bit. Alabama contending with them this weekend. Got a game tonight and a game tomorrow. Again, watching the weather for those games as well over in Auburn. That's going to do it for the show today. I appreciate everybody watching. I appreciate Chance Bailey and and James Ludeman, both commenting on the Facebook side of things. Both those guys, I appreciate y'all, and you can comment if you'd like, even if you're watching this later on the social medias at Joe Gaither 6 on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Make sure that you subscribe to the show, download, rate, and review it on your favorite podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. Who are your top 10 Alabama football players? Let me know what you think over the weekend, and we'll talk to you again on Monday right here on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.